All right, we're so lucky to have with us Ed Haemmerle. He is inside what is called, I think, a Cyber Phoenix. Thank you so much for being with us, Ed. Where are you? What's going on?
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I am indeed sitting inside the Cyber Phoenix. I could whip this camera around if you so choose, but I'm sitting on what's called the dinette. Considering we're on a 6.5-foot bed in the back of a Cybertruck, this, as you'll see in the video, has the capability of holding 4 people, so you can have dinner, have a few cocktails, whatever. But to my left is my kitchen cooktop and sink. To my right is our bed, toilet, refrigerator. We'll get on with it all, but yeah, I'm enjoying the good life here in the back of in my driveway, in the back of my camper.
That all those things you said were inside your Cyber Phoenix, inside the Cybertruck?
Exactly. So this, if anyone knows anything about truck campers, this thing functions like any other truck camper would. It has every comfort of home. Granted, a little smaller. You might be standing in the kitchen, the dinette, the toilet, and the living room all at one time. But for all intents and purposes, it has all the luxuries of home. And we're self-sustainable here. It runs on its own power, although we can use the Cybertruck as well. But it's a sort of a bug out, go anywhere camping truck camper.
This sounds like the dream for a lot of people. Now, I know there's a lot of companies that are working on things like this. We've talked to a bunch of them. What makes yours different than theirs?
Well, for starters, I think range. Anyone that owns a Tesla or any kind of EV knows that range is the most important thing. So we started off with the base concept is that it had to be energy efficient, and it being a pop-up and lowering down. You can see here, this is the window and screen has a winter window and it can close and so forth. But at the end of the day, the roof will come down to about my chest level here. And so when we drive down the road, I mean, I don't really know exactly what a typical Cybertruck's watt hour per mile is, because as we know, that changes greatly depending upon where you live and how you drive. But we did a 2,500 mile trek around the country, and we're averaging 425 watt hours per mile with 1,400 pounds of camper. My wife and I, at one point, my son, driving from Colorado to Florida to all over the place.
Well, I have a Cybertruck, and those are pretty good numbers.
Those are really good numbers.
I mean, you must have a very light foot.
To be perfectly honest, we used FSD a bunch, but I would say on highways, we're doing what the speed limits say. I would, generally speaking, maybe 70s, the top speed that we're doing on the highway. And of course, this trip was going to Nashville and to Florida, and it gets a little flatter than, say, running up in the Rocky Mountains. So that, of course, would go, the watt hour per mile would go higher if I was going up in the Rockies. But for flat ground, that's a pretty good baseline.
That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why not a towable, but I can see why. This really does change the whole. You don't have to have that extra weight that would be put on 2 new tires or 4 new tires. And so like this does seem like it's perfect, because you've just solved the number one issue, I think, for most people is the range anxiety. And they're just like, well, I don't want to do anything that's going to make it harder for me to drive. And you just basically kept it a Cybertruck. Exactly.
So, and you can fit anywhere. You go to a concert, you can go down a woods where there's a fire lane, where there's low hanging trees. We've literally parked or camped in parking garages. So it's pretty versatile. We also have, as we get into this, we've also done a towing type trailer that has solar panels and an EV charging station. But so we have sort of the best of all worlds. We can go old school truck camper, or we can pull out the travel trailer, and it's basically a rolling charging station. But yeah, we have the versatility of either.
So what got you started down this journey of cyber camping?
Well, my wife and I, my family, we were always big camper people and nature. And so we checked out every national park there is, went abroad to Iceland and truck camped in Ireland. And so being out in the woods and enjoying nature was something we always did. And I was also always I founded a solar company and was into sustainability and always into EVs. And so once the Cybertruck was going to come out, it was, of course, we were going to mate those two things and do an environmentally friendly EV style camper. And so 5 years ago, pre-COVID, it's hard to believe that's when this idea came about. But we're finally here, and we're finally been enjoying it for the last year.
How did you build it? Is this something you just built in your garage? Like, how did you go about doing this?
So, I mean, I did own a construction business at one point, and probably could maybe build one myself, and had done battery systems myself. But in this case, we really needed to partner with someone who was highly capable and competent. And so I searched around on the internet. I found 3 companies, one in particular in Denver, Colorado, that was really capable. It's called Phoenix Pop-Up. Their forte is doing truck campers. And so I teamed up with them and we sat down. I called them up on the phone and said, hey, can I take you to lunch or can I meet you at the shop? And we discussed things, and they had some intrigue with the Cybertruck already, and one thing led to another, and here we are.
So if people watching, and we're going to get into the details, you're going to walk us through it in a second, but if people are already typing furiously to go check this out, what are they going to find? How much does this cost? And can you get on a list for one?
So absolutely. I would say if you ordered one now, it might be 3 months in order to get one. They're being built in Denver, Colorado under Phoenix pop-up. If you go to my site, which is cybertruck01.com, you can get all the information there. Also, when we do go through this, please understand that if, like for instance, one big thing people always say is the stovetop that's right here on my left side, it has propane. We did that because we're in Colorado and we camp in the wintertime, which is semi-unusual. We'll go up in the mountains when it's 10 degrees and put on crampons and, freeze to death. So actually, instead of freezing to death, you need to have propane to do some heating. We could certainly use battery, and we do at certain times, but there's a time and a place. If you're 150 miles away from home and you're staying for 2 days, you don't want to deplete the Cybertruck battery and then you can't get home. Anyway, long-winded answer, but the point is, you want an induction cooktop, you want the seats to be purple, do you want AC unit, whatever it is, they will gladly do it. It's all custom built. And generally speaking, we're in the mid to high 50s. And so obviously that could fluctuate ever so slightly if you had some really special request, but that's basically where we are. And it's all custom built. So people, I hope, understand this isn't just something you stamp out in 5 seconds. It's custom built. It's all this specialty welding that has to get done. So it's very structurally sound.
Really cool that you went to a company that already did this for a living, so you didn't have to start from complete scratch, like you said, trying to build it in your garage or something. So it's really nice knowing that this company knows how to do what they do.
Yeah, they've been doing it for 30, 40 years. And other thing I'll say too is if you like this camper and you don't have a Cybertruck, they could build it on a Rivian or on a F-150 or a Chevy. It would obviously be a different design, but that's why I picked them. They've been doing they've been doing Unimogs, if you know what that is. They've done crazy builds. So the guy is like Rob is like a genius. Everything is inside his head, and I think he goes to bed at night and comes up with a plan in the morning.
Walk us through what we're going to be finding if I were to be in there with you. Like, let's go maybe clockwise from you around and tell me the different features and the different things that we're going to see.
So right here we have our sink and our cooktop. It's a 2-burner cooktop, as I said, to a 20-pound propane cylinder. Underneath the sink, you have your typical cabinets for all your needs for pots and pans and knives and forks and so forth. On the bottom is a toilet. It's a composting toilet made by Ogo, but it's one of the more simple ones, but it without question does the job. Underneath the seat where I'm sitting on is 20 gallons of fresh water in the water pump. So we have filtered water to drinkable fresh water. On the other side of underneath the seats of the dinette is 400 amp hours of Victron batteries and a Victron Multi-Plus 3,000 watt 12 volt system. And it's attached to 400 watts on the roof. And so this system is very well balanced. We never run out of power. We've disconnected and we went on a trip one time where we parked in a parking garage for 4 or 5 days. And we had two 12 volt refrigerators running. And by the time we came back, the thing still had 30% power. Speaking of that, refrigerators, we currently have 2 in here. We'll generally carry one, which is a dual zone. I call it the Cyber Fridge because it's aluminum, and you can make that all refrigerator, all freezer, or half and half. The other reason why we carry 2 is we traveled for over 6 weeks a couple weeks ago. And so my wife is a great cook, and she winds up cooking a ton of stuff and freezing it in those little square aluminum containers, and we put them all in the freezer, and then every night you defrost one and then you have a 5-course meal. Underneath the refrigerator is a propane heater. Again, if you were in Florida and didn't need it, you wouldn't necessarily need one, but this propane heater sips propane and will easily, I've been in 10-degree temperatures, and you could be in shorts and a t-shirt. Furthermore, I've actually used the electric heater and plugged it into the Cybertruck when we know we have enough power. If we know we have enough battery power on the Cybertruck, we'll always try to use battery power, because why waste propane? Then I have to fill the tank. And if it's just easy to go to a supercharging station or go home, then obviously that makes more sense. And so plus I always like living in Colorado. Geez, you really never know. You could be driving on the highway and a storm comes, or an avalanche or something crazy, and you're stuck on the side of the road. So we conserve our fossil fuel resources, and we always use electric when applicable, and then we always have them. Of course, it's just cheaper too, and easier to just put electricity in. Anyway, the other two compartments, there's a hot water heater, which is 6 gallons of hot water, which is more than ample. And then there's a storage compartment underneath. In that storage compartment, we have a Starlink charger, or I should say a converter, which will convert 12 volts to 20 so that you can run the Starlink. You can also, there's an outdoor 120 volt outlet on the outside, so you can hook that to the if you want to go 50 feet away with the Starlink, you really probably need to use 120 volt. Anything on top or very close, we try to use the battery. It's a general practice for any camping. Anytime you can use the DC power than AC power, you always try to run everything on DC, just because the inverter itself uses power and we don't want to waste any. We just try to conserve as much as we can. What else? Oh, we have a bed here. This is slightly smaller than the Queen. I think they trimmed it down a little bit. At the end of the day, you are on a 6.5 foot pickup truck bed, but my wife and I sleep here quite easily. Speaking of sleeping on a bed, the dinette converts to a bed as well. So I would say you could easily sleep 2 adults, two kids. You could easily sleep 2 adults and a third adult on the bed. 4 adults would be a little tight, to say the least. You better be you better have a very good relationship. What else? The windows here, or the pop-up itself, is insulated. And so it's for winter. It can be used for winter camping, or even keep the AC in. It has a screen here. I won't show you, but basically it has plastic windows so that it won't let any wind come in. And so you can have like a winter window. Essentially, you can see out, but none of the cold air or winds coming in. Or you can pull it up completely closed, and it's blackout. So you want to sleep you had a long night at the campsite and you want to sleep till noon, you can lay in here and it's essentially dark. What else? There's an outside. Oh, even inside there's a shower. So the table that I'm talking to you on, that this computer is sitting on, if you remove the table, and there's another huge compartment for food and so forth, a pantry. But if you remove that and move the table, underneath that is a shower pan. And then there's some hooks on the ceiling, and you take the shower curtain and you could shower inside. It's not the most convenient thing to do, but without question, if it's 10 degrees outside and you got really muddy or fell down through the ice or on a little pond or something, you needed to take a shower, you could do so. But there's also a shower on the outside, which is very, very easy to use. And, throw on some shorts and go out there. One thing I didn't mention I forget to go back to the bed, is the bed itself has a hinge and lifts up, and you have a ton of storage inside of that. So all things considered, it's a pretty significant storage in here. One other thing I said too is that this whole camper is a truck camper. And what that typically means is there's 4 jacks on the outside. Now, I don't have the jacks on right now because it's just, I don't take this thing off. I used to be in the contracting business. I'm not going to Home Depot anymore throwing 2x4s. And so for me to leave it on all the time, it's more convenient to have a bathroom, a kitchen, a bed 24/7 than it is to take it on and off. But you can. It might take 15, or I'd say it'd take 25 minutes to get it off. Once you got used to doing it, it's probably closer to 15. But essentially the jacks lift up the camper, you disconnect the plug, and then you drive out and lower it back down. And then you could if you wanted to leave it at the campsite, you could just leave it there or leave it in your backyard or whatever. So they both can operate together, or they both can operate separately. And like I said, the solar system on the roof of the camper still functions. So there's no, you could still do what you would do even when it's hooked to the Cybertruck. One last thing I'll say about that is when you look around the outside, you don't see the jacks. And that is because for aerodynamic purposes, I just leave them off. I also think it looks a lot better. But if you wanted to leave them on, you certainly could. And there would be some amount of range loss. What that is, I don't really know. Maybe it's 15 watt hours per mile. I'm guessing, but it's certainly going to be less. The coefficient of drag would be more with them on. You can take the jacks with you. You can put them inside the Cybertruck. You can put them inside the camper and then mount them on. But I don't. I just drive around without it because I think it looks cool. That's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. Looking cool.
All right. So talk to me a little bit about camping, because it sounds like you have a lot of experience truck camping, and I don't. I have the Cyber tent for the Cybertruck, and I took it camping, and I went on the hottest day of the year, and I was like sweating to death and getting eaten to death by bugs. And obviously I didn't have a dinette or a kitchen, and while the storage was great underneath, the bed of the Cyber tent, it was like, okay, this is camping. Talk to me a little bit about, I think a lot of people hear composting toilet, and I know what compost is, and some people think it's, all clean and nice, and other people think the compost stinks. Like, what is a compost toilet? Can you just explain it? Because I'm sorry, I've heard it a million times, and everybody says, oh, it just sits right here. And I go, gross.
So I thought the same thing. And had the other camper that we had not had a composting Ogo toilet with it, I never would have done it because I literally thought the same thing. Now I'm never going back. They last longer. There really is no odor. Not to get into great detail, but the biggest odor with composting toilets, or I should say, greatest odor with any toilet is when urine and the solids mix. And if you separate the solids from the liquid, 99% of your problems go away. And so what happens is you wind up changing, it goes into a tank and you clean out the urine tank more often. But the fact of the matter is you can dump this tank anywhere. Instead of having, like with regular campers, you're like searching around for dump sites. They're few and far in between. You have to pay money. Sometimes it's $10, sometimes it's 30. With this, I can take that tank, I can go into any toilet in the whole world and just dump it into the toilet. Under the right circumstances, please understand, you can dump it on the ground. If you're in the middle of nowhere, you could dig a hole and pour it in the ground, not the solids, I'm talking about the urine. Although, technically speaking, when you look at the solids, if I didn't tell you that it was waste matter and said I just bought this at Home Depot for some peat moss, you would not know the difference. It looks like charcoal coffee grounds, or a darker thing. So essentially no odor. It doesn't look like you think it looks. It's not like, oh my goodness, you go to a national park and you look down a latrine. Nothing, zero, has no similarity to that whatsoever. And so it's cost effective. It also doesn't use water. So normally with any other toilet, you're using water to rinse and clean. You don't have that issue. So when I have 20 gallons of water on this thing, I'm not wasting any of it flushing the toilet. So I won't go any further detail than that. I'm actually going to do some toilet. We have two styles. We have a very, very fancy one in the travel trailer, and this is a very rudimentary, basic one. The other ones have vents and mixing things and all kinds of stuff and lights. This is just the down and dirty, except it's not dirty version of the toilet.
Because so many people, the things that stop them from going camping are usually the toilet is number one, because it is going to be some kind of latrine system.
Shower.
And the second one is shower, because it's going to be like, oh, you just walk down to the building and everybody showers there, and there's 4,000 of the biggest moths you've ever seen in your whole entire life, and they're going to shower with you. And you go, oh, great. And it's some, rusty spigot. So it's nice to think that you could shower in the privacy of your own little camper.
Without question. I mean, it's more convenient in the sense that you don't have to walk down and see 20 other people and maybe they don't have the same hygiene as you do. I mean, when you're in these small areas, when you have a big camper, you can have a big bathroom, and I mean, we could have built a room that has a shower curtain, but then you don't have enough room for all the other things. So I dare to say it's jack of all trades, master of none, because I think it does function rather well. But there's some complexity to doing some things. The outdoor shower is super easy, of course, assuming you're not, again, throwing some shorts or whatever else. But yeah, it definitely. And look, when we travel around, like if you're at a rest stop, we try to use, it's like anything else. When you can use someone else's facilities, we like to do that for a whole host of reasons, just because it's cheaper and easier. And this toilet with two people actually will last weeks. I mean, you'll have to change the urine more often, but the solids component of it will last weeks. And so it's pretty darn convenient. And the truth be said, if you wanted to get really, really basic, you can not even use the composting thing and just use the bag that's inside of it, and then just dispose of it immediately. Use it, tie it, and throw it out if you wanted to. I don't think that's the best way of doing it, but if that's the way you roll, you could certainly do it.
Now, you mentioned a towable as well. Can you give us a little info on that?
Yeah, so this thing is rather insane. So it's called the Fusion Hyper Camper from Australia, first one in the United States. We modified it. It didn't come this way. Now this thing is made for going out in the bush, going into Africa, going to South America. This isn't a city slicker travel trailer. This is the real deal. It has hydraulic shocks. It has a ventilation system that prevents dust from getting inside. The Aussies are really into camping on the outside as opposed to camping on the inside. So it has a real fancy, you open this big side hatch and has a big fancy kitchen, has a fancy bathroom, has a bigger shower. The real cool feature about this thing, and again, you can see this all at cybertruck01.com, is that we've put a massive battery system, big solar system, which is going to get larger, and a Tesla level 2 destination charger is mounted on the inside. So it's essentially a rolling charging station. So the battery system is 20 kilowatt hours, not amp hours. Everyone talks in amp hours when they talk about campers like this. The Cyber Phoenix has 400 amp hours of battery. So this has the equivalent of 1,600 amp hours of battery. So it's not going to make the Cybertruck drive 300 miles. It's not like all of a sudden, but it's a good base. And with the solar, we have 1,400 watts of solar on the system now, but we're in talks with putting an awning that has about 1,000 watts. And we're also going to have a solar blanket. So already it's all set up and ready to go. It has a little attachment where you plug in this solar blanket. And so maybe you add 800 watts there, you have 1,400 on the roof, and you have 1,000 on this awning. And all of a sudden now you're talking about adding serious power over a couple of days. So the thought process is, this is, sort of the concept here, proof of concept, is that we're going to do a bunch of traveling soon to verify all these things. I mean, I've done some testing. We know it charges and works and so forth, but we want to see what we can do. The premise will be, you go hiking up in the mountains, you stay 3 days, and you gain 50 miles. You drive 50 miles, you stay somewhere 3 days, and you get 50 miles, and you go. And so theoretically, you could slow walk around the country. Now, is it going to rain one day? Is it going to be a little cloudy? But for the most part, in Utah and Colorado, I mean, we're here in Boulder, we get 300 days of sunshine. So we should have plenty of sun. If we have 3,000 watts, I mean, you'll go to Burning Man, you could stay for the week, and by the time you left, you would be 100% charged. So that's the idea. And then you also have the capacity to just do anything you want. You could run, it's like I said, it's a rolling power plant. So we'll see how this works out, but that's the idea.
That sounds really cool. And you had mentioned that towing it, actually, you found in some of your testing that it doesn't lose as much range as you thought it would.
Correct. So if you go on our YouTube channel, you'll see a bunch of trips. I went to SpaceX with the Cybertruck, but at the time it had a Urander rack. And what a Urander rack is just like a Molly panel system. It looks really cool. You can mount rotopacks and tents, and it looks cool. But the reason why I got it, in addition to putting 500 watt solar panel on the roof, is that it got the air up and maintained it high, and then it flowed over the top of Fusion. This was definitely doing better than the Cybertruck would have been, but it wasn't perfect by any means. And the Molly panel, I even think, since it has all these little squares, you're getting little eddies. It's not perfect. To our surprise, I mean, we knew it would do well, but this camper, even though it weighs 1,400 pounds more than the Urander rack, it's doing significantly better on the highway. And so now its wake is larger, so it's displacing the air further around. So we're expecting it to do better. I mean, I have no doubt it will do better. It's more efficient, plus it's larger, so it'll maintain this airflow over the top of the camper of the one that we're towing. So not only do we have two campers, but now hopefully we're going to have better range with the one. So I don't know where we're going to fall. If we got to 175 miles, I would be delighted. I don't know if we're going to be that good. That's what I'm shooting for. And the other nice part about a travel trailer, again, everything is a plus and a minus. There's benefits to being small and mobile in the Cyber Phoenix. And then it can never be too small when you're driving down the road, and it never can be too big when you get to the campsite. And so when you get to the campsite, to have a bigger bed and a bigger shower and all these and more storage. But the good thing about the travel trailer is that we can disconnect. So even if we're sort of struggling with range and only getting 150 or 175 miles or whatever it turns out to be, at least when we get to where we're going, we can drop it off, and now we're back to our regular range again. And so our camping, with the travel trailer, it's going to be a sort of a different lifestyle. If I was going to go to a concert real fast, or I had to blast to Texas and back in 2 days, probably not going to take that thing, because it'll be more of a hassle to drag it around. But if we're going somewhere for a long time, or my wife and I, which is a possibility, may decide to go camping for a year or 2 years and just travel around the country, then of course we'll take it. And even if you leave it somewhere at times, it's just a house. It's a rolling house that also happens to be a power plant.
Yeah, I mean, and Zach and I can attest to this, because our solar trailer is basically almost the exact same stats that you're talking about 20 kilowatt hours of battery and about 1,400 watts of solar. And it's like, yep, it charges itself up in a reasonable amount of time. It doesn't do it overnight. Doesn't charge at night anyway, but it, you're like, oh, I have a meaningful amount of power. We're able to air condition the thing, run a full studio with Starlink and everything. And so, yeah, power like that is very, very exciting. I think it's exciting for a lot of people to think that they might be able to live kind of this travel lifestyle, because everyone knows that travel is the most luxurious thing you can do, and everyone acts that way. But so many people also want to work while they travel, and people see influencers, doing the travel lifestyle. On today's vlog, we're going to Disney World, but I think that a lot of people want to have that for themselves and not necessarily be so public. And I feel like this is a good way to do it. You can, if you have a work from home job and all you needed is an internet connection, well, thank you, Elon. We got the Starlink for that. And now, with having some backup power in the Cybertruck, and now maybe even having either a truck camper like what you're sitting in now, or a towable with a crap load of batteries in it, it seems like all of this stuff is just so much more doable than it used to be.
Yeah, the other funny part about it too is that this trailer, the travel trailer, sits in my driveway, and the Cybertruck I back up and I park in the driveway. And so now it's sitting here and the batteries are always full because, it's just sitting there with the solar. So what I've been doing, as opposed to plugging into the house, I just plug into the travel trailer and I boost. So now, again, it's not free solar in the sense that I didn't pay all this money to have this thing, but at least I'm recouping my investment while even when I'm not using the travel trailer, right. I'm using it as a tap off for the day. Obviously, if I drain the battery down, it doesn't have enough power. But if I drive 20 miles for the day and I come back to the house, I don't have to plug into the house and use power. I use the travel trailer power.
The other part is, if you lose power in your house, you have another house with battery.
Exactly.
And so you can run stuff in your house. You could run an extension cord back into your house and keep all the stuff in your fridge from going bad. You could get your Wi-Fi router back up and running, unless all those wires have been cut as well. But you probably have Starlink on your travel trailer.
Ed, this is so cool. If people want to check out what you're doing, so if they want to follow you either like YouTubing or whatever, where are the best places for them to go? On
all our social media accounts, it's basically Cybertruck1, but one is spelled out O-N-E.
Okay.
So on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, TikTok, Cybertruck1 O-N-E. Obviously, the website, as I mentioned a couple times already, Cybertruck01, and that will, most of the stuff I have on social media is also is connected there, so you could definitely find us. But yeah, that's where want to say hello. Or the other thing I tell people, if you're interested in the Cyber Phoenix and you see me traveling around on X, shoot me a note. I've done this. One of the campers we sold already, someone was in Marathon, and I was in the Florida Keys. I was in Key Largo. Someone saw that I was there, said, "Hey, do you mind shooting to Marathon? My wife and I would really like to see it. We're interested in purchasing one." I shot down there, and they're getting one. So
nice. That's awesome. Ed, thank you so much for taking the time today and explaining it all to us. I can't wait to see one of these on the road and in person, and I'll be going to check it out myself.
Yeah, I have a feeling one of these days you guys got to come down to SpaceX for a launch. I'm sure we're going to bump into each other one of these days.
Definitely.
And again, I really appreciate, I've been following you guys for a couple of years now, more than that, back in the day when you're at the Cybertruck reveal and so forth. And so what is the saying? Long time listener, first time caller, or whatever it is. So anyway, I very much appreciate you talking to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, take care. See you later. Bye.